Hello, I am the business doctor, Keitumetse Lekaba, MD, and I'm an entrepreneur. As we look ahead, one of the things we really need to look at, or one of the things we really need to consider, is insurance for our businesses. And today, I am not alone. I'm joined by Mmabatho Letoaba from FNB Commercial Insurance, who is going to tell us how FNB can help you. Hi, Mmabatho.
Hi, how are you doing, Keitumetse?
Good, thank you. Tell us, why do you need insurance as a business?
Well, as we all know, uncertainties are a part of life. They'll always be there, and no business is immune to these uncertainties. So anything could happen to your business that would result in you guys having to either shut down or stop operations. And we know what happens in those cases. It affects you, it affects your employees, and it also affects the companies that you purchase from and that you sell to. And having insurance is a way to have a layer of comfort so that should anything happen that is unplanned and unforeseen, you're able to resume operations and that you won't be affected adversely.
How do I know what insurance is good for my business? I mean, some businesses are in service industries, some businesses are selling goods and services. So how do I really know what insurance should I take?
Keitumetse, the important thing to know in that instance is that you have to have an intricate knowledge of your business in particular, as well as the risks that you're exposed to. It's not enough to simply know the risks of that industry, because there are little bits and nuances that could be specific to your operations that you would need to mitigate for. If, for instance, I had to use a practical example, you look at a business that makes and sells candles, for instance, or versus a business that would be delivering those candles. Those two specific businesses would have such a variety of risks and exposures that they would need to mitigate against. So if, for instance, I am the maker of the candles and the seller of the candles, I would have to think about so many things. If I'm in an industrial type of space, do I own the building that I operate out of? And if I don't own that building, is it insured by my landlord? Have I insured my rent in the event that I can't operate? And my landlord says to me, I still want my rent because I'm not, because I'm still using the space. And then you have to look at insuring your raw materials that you use to make the candles, the equipment that you use to make the candles. Obviously, equipment failure means that you cannot operate, which sets you back. Also look at insuring your packaging, because if your packaging isn't right, you can't sell, you can't move your product, it's stagnant. So those are the things that you would have to look at insuring. Once you get to things like, I do own the building, is the building itself insured, right? Now that you've got your product, it's been made, it's been packaged, it's waiting to go out. You're gonna either use your own delivery service, or in most instances, because businesses can't take on that extra risk, they would then use the services of a delivery company.
Outsource.
That delivery company would have such different risks because they've got trucks on the road all the time, or vans, or even just plain vehicles. Those need to be insured. One truck is out, you're out, 10 deliveries a day? That's money that you're losing out on. You're also responsible for third-party goods. And are you then able to either, replace the money for goods that are damaged, or goods that don't make it to the third party, or are you able to replace the goods, period? So you always, you need to look at where your biggest risks are, and that will help you to determine what insurance you need. And again, it's always great to have an insurance broker. And that's where FNB insurance brokers, I think, comes in very, very handy, because we know the risks associated with the industry. We know the covers that you need. And we're then able to say to you, XYZ would be applicable, whereas ABC wouldn't.
be, okay.
But again, we take our lead from you as the client.
Once I have this insurance policy, how often should I be reviewing it?
The standard is to review insurance policies once a year, although we do advise that anytime there's a major shift in your business, you have a review of where you sit with your insurances. So if you acquire another entity, for instance, you obviously have a greater exposure. You need to make sure that they're insured. Or if you sell off some items, your sum insured is obviously not as high. And what you want to try and avoid is having, is paying too much for insurance that you may not need. And the absolute worst thing you don't want is to ever be underinsured. Because in as much as you have the values that you declare at renewal, if you're making massive acquisitions in between and you haven't declared those numbers, insurers are going to say to you, this was not a good picture of the risk. This is what we rated the risk on, and therefore the risk will be adjusted to cover for what the loss is versus what you should have been paid in totality.
Sure. And outside of the normal business insurance and asset insurance that we know, what other insurance products should I be considering as an entrepreneur?
So if you have a business that's heavy on employees, because not all businesses operate the same way.
Yeah.
But if you have a business that's heavy on employees, you might want to consider a product such as group personal accident, where your employees would be covered for death, accidental death or disability, be it temporary or permanent. They'd also be covered in the event that they lose a limb, that would affect their ability to work. Firms, for instance, that are advice heavy, we would recommend that they have professional indemnity insurance. So if you give the wrong advice to a client and they suffer a loss as a result, you would then be able to claim from your professional indemnity insurance because that's what it's designed for. And then again, you've got businesses that are fortunate enough to have a board of directors.
Yeah.
That board of directors is going to make decisions. They're going to steer the company in a certain way. And if any of those decisions have a fallout or result in something adverse happening to the company, those directors can be sued in their personal capacity. And that is where your directors and officers policy would then come in. But again, covers such as your directors and officers, they're very intricate and they're very complex. You would need someone to talk you through it and to help you understand the levels at which your board of directors would be covered. And that would be past, present, as well as future directors.
And lastly, does FNB have any specific products for small businesses and entrepreneurs out there?
Oh, we definitely do. So FNB Insurance Brokers has a product that is turnover based, and that can be used, all the way from your very small businesses all the way to the mid-corp level. And what happens with that product is that once you've got your turnover put in as your main sum insured, we then use a percentage of that turnover to determine what extensions you need and what extra covers you have. And that is how the product is then packaged. So, a business with a turnover of 2 million per annum won't obviously have the same limits as a business with a turnover of 50 million per annum. Again, the products won't be the same either. And that's where our First for Business would come in. First for Business goes all the way up to your mid-corp sized entities. And that's just, some of the products that we can offer as FNB Insurance Brokers.
Sure, knowledge is power. And thank you so much, Mmabatho, for empowering us.
It has been my absolute pleasure.